Hi, welcome to this video tutorial. I'm Dave, and in this video I'm going to show you how to use the virtual buttons feature of the Fragpedal. What are virtual buttons? Virtual buttons are technology that allows you to send macros stored in Fragpedal memory from keyboard keys. How does the Fragpedal do this? The Fragpedal as an ED device uses ED technology called keyboard shadowing that synchronizes the user's keyboard input with the ED macro engine. You just need a USB keyboard and to register it with the Fragpedal. If you have a PS2 keyboard you like, no problem, you can get a PS2 to USB adapter that plugs on the end of the keyboard cord and convert it to a USB keyboard. You can get these at Amazon and other places for about $10. Okay, let's register our keyboard and get started. I'll click the device menu and then select ED Device Manager. When the manager opens, I'll look for the line with the word keyboard and select it, which will highlight it in yellow. And note that the ED control driver status will show as not installed in red text. Next, click on the install button. Two things will happen. A window will pop up to warn you that the machine will need to be rebooted for this change to take effect. You can press OK on that. Secondly, you'll notice that the ED control driver status now shows as installed in green text. Now click on the close button. Despite the pop-up warning window, I have learned that you don't actually need to reboot your computer. You can simply unplug both the ED device, which is the Fragpedal, and the keyboard and replug them both to register the keyboard. So hold on a second while I do that. Okay, having unplugged and replugged both devices, I can now open the ED Device Manager again and this time see that it is showing as installed in green. I'll close that and we are set to go, ready to set up our first virtual button. I'll click on Virtual Button 1 and select the Macro Builder. This module will take us through the process to build a macro using a wizard-like interface, and when complete we'll write the macro to disk and also assign it to the button, ready to be saved to memory. In the list box on the left are the template macros that we start with. Notice that the first 5 are for putting macros on buttons, so we won't be using these. The rest, however, will work. Notice that we have 4 key macros, 1 key combo macro, and 2 key cluster macro templates. The key cluster templates are pretty awesome. A single macro will basically put different macros on 4 to 8 keys. But let's start with a single key macro, of which there are 4. Notice that these macros are similar to the 4 button macros above. These are smart button templates that will provide strategic ways to send commands through the game. We'll go through each of these, starting with a basic single command macro. To put a simple macro on a key, use 2A, the press release key macro. When you click on the macro, notice that the right-hand help window will display related help. Click the next button to move to the next page. This is the assignment page where we'll make the first assignment, which is what key to put the macro on. A general rule is to put macros on keys that aren't used by the game or program. This is because the key sending your macro will also send its normal character, and this could have unintended effects. The bottom properties window on the left is where you assign the macro to a key. I'm going to use F6. To set this, I double-click on the label keyboard key, which pops up the keyboard key list, and I scroll down to select F6 and then hit OK. The F6 key is now selected to send the macro. Now to put a command on it to send. The upper box on the left is the triggers box, which shows the triggers the button produces. Triggers are where you assign commands. The press release key has 3 triggers: the press trigger, a while down trigger, and the release trigger. If you wanted some command or commands to repeat as long as you held the key down, you use the while down trigger. But we just want a simple macro, and that means we just need the press trigger. So we click the No Commands label under the press trigger and then click on the plus box below. Plus means add commands, the minus button deletes them. Okay, the commands menu is open and you can see that there are a lot of different command options. The ones at the top of the list, the emulation commands, are commands that the macro will send to the game or app. The commands at the bottom of the menu are commands that control device functions only, and you can see that many of these are for a mouse. We'll ignore these and concentrate on the emulation commands. Next, I'll select Press a Key under the Keyboard Emulation section. This pops up the Press a Key submenu displaying the options for this choice. You can assign a modifier key or a standard key, and you can assign just the press or release part as well as the complete key press. The separate press and release choices are for assignment to the press and release triggers of a button for the case where you want the button to hold a key down. but we don't need that here. We just want to send a quick key press of the print screen command. So I scroll the key list down to the print screen selection and select it, and then hit complete press only, and then hit OK. We are returned to the assignment page and see that the press trigger now shows press print screen. Since this is the only assignment we want to make, we press the next button to move to the naming page. First is the file name for the macro. It is shown as my macro some number ed by default, but this is not very descriptive, so I'll name it print screen F6. Be sure to leave the ed file extension. Next is the button name, which will be displayed on the top line of the button label. The next field, button description, is displayed directly below the button name. These two text fields are saved with the macro and used to identify the macros on the buttons. So I'll enter F6 print screen for the short name and F6 presses print screen for the longer name. Finally, there is the button help text field. Here you can enter up to 2048 characters of text, about 2 long paragraphs, or a link to an HTML help document in the HTML subdirectory, or even a website URL. This text or link is also saved in device memory, so that whenever needed, you can click on View Button Help to display the information. It is especially useful for documenting multi-triggered macros and how to use them. Okay, so I'm going to type a little help info into the field. Okay, having entered the help text, we press Finish. We are returned to the main window where we see the new macro on Virtual Button 1, and also note that the Save button is highlighted, meaning that this has not yet been saved to memory. We press the Save button and the macro is now written to Fragpedal memory and ready to use. And that's the key thing to remember about keyboard key macros in a configuration. They are always on, always ready to use. Okay, I'll click on the Show button Help and show you the help text I entered. The macro is also saved to disk in the macro subdirectory. This is what we did in the macro builder. Create this text file on disk and also save it to the Fragpedal memory. And it works. When I press the F6 key now, I get the print screen command. Okay, for Virtual Button 2, let's up the ante a little. Say we want to map the right-click button to the F5 key. We'll go through the same steps. Select Macro Builder from the Virtual Button. Select the press release template. Assign the key as F5, and this time assign the press trigger to mouse right-click press only, and the release trigger to the right-click release. We're mapping the right click to the F5 key. Okay, add the text info. And save. Now when we press the F5 key, we get the alternate menu pop-up, which is what the right click does on the desktop. So that's cool. You've moved the right click to the keyboard. But say it ends up we need to hold the right click down a lot, and we don't like that. So let's make the key a toggle. Tap it once, the right click goes down. Tap it again, the right click comes up. To do this, we follow the same macro builder procedure, but this time select the 2B keyboard key toggle template. There are lots of instructions in the help window, but we'll just go on to the next screen. This time we put a click, right click, press only on the odd press, and a click, right click, release only on the even press. We'll go on and fill in our text fields. And press Finish and Save. Now, the first time we press it, nothing seems to happen, but the second time pops the alternate menu. In the game, it would have a different effect. Okay, now we want to set up a key for dealing with having to swap something pretty quickly. Could be a weapon or whatever. Okay, We'll use a keyboard key timed press template for this. This will give us a macro that will let one key swap up to 3 items quickly. It's going to do that by how you press the key, basically by how long you press it. If you tap it really quickly, it'll do something. I'm going to make it type press so I can show you it. So on the tap trigger, I'll make the medium press, which is just slightly longer. In the long press, I'll make type. Don't need the long release. Fill in the text fields. Hit finish and save. I'll open Notepad and check it out. So here's a tap at just slightly longer press and holding it a little longer, just a tad longer. So basically I can choose the weapon each time by how long I press the key. And that's pretty cool for just one key. There's always a good use for this kind of key, and of course you can also set up a Fragpedal button the same way. So this is the basic process to use the virtual buttons feature of your Fragpedal. There are other keyboard key macro options. The count macro is made for sending a set of different commands in a row or a count at whatever timing you need in the situation. It lets you use one key to pull off 3 or more consecutive commands on your timing or even abort them. The key cluster macro handles multiple keys. You'll be able to put macros on up to 8 keys with one of these, but only on the press trigger. So this concludes this virtual button tutorial. I hope it's of some help to you. And if you have any further questions about it, feel free to email me and I'll get back to you. Game on!